unwilling to expose her to public disgrace, planned to dismiss her quietly. But just when he had resolved to do this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, "Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for the child conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you are to name him Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins." All this took place to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet. "Look, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall name him Emmanuel," which means God is with us. When Joseph awoke from sleep, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded him. He took her as his wife, but he had no marital relations with her until she had borne a son, and he named him Jesus. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Grace and peace to you from God, our Creator and Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. You know, it must have been a really tough day and a heck of a sleepless night when Joseph learned of Mary's pregnancy. Joseph paced the floor, pace, pace, pace. The shame, the embarrassment, probably some anger. Many assumptions were going on in Joseph's head. There was disbelief and shock and confusion. Certainly, there was doubt in the story that was circulating that this baby was of the Holy Spirit. I mean, who had ever heard of such a thing? No one. Pace, pace, pace. Joseph knew only one thing, and that was that he had to leave. He had to break the engagement. And as he paced the floor, he pondered, back and forth he went. I need to break the engagement, he thought. That part was obvious. But if I do, people are going to ask why. In the days of Joseph and Mary, an engagement was like a binding contract. It usually meant that they were as good as married, but engagement meant that the girl still lived with her parents in her father's house, and that they would not live together until they were officially married. So as far as anyone was concerned, they were bound together in such a way that to undo the engagement, a certificate of divorce would have to be issued. The difficulty with a divorce, however, is that it would call public attention to the problem at hand. A child that was not his, and a pregnancy that came with an outrageous story that no one in their right mind would ever believe. People would think only one of two things: that Joseph and Mary had gotten ahead of themselves, or that Mary had done the unthinkable. Neither were great options. Pace, pace, pace. Joseph paced the floor, and then he sat down, chin in hand. He sobbed a little, felt angry a little, straightened up, and then confusion and pain washed over him again. Pace, pace, pace. If he divorced Mary and people realized why, which they would eventually, Mary and the baby could be punished, maybe even stoned to death. Best case scenario, she would be shunned from her village, and her parents would probably be kicked out of the synagogue and sent away. More than likely, however, she would be considered an adulteress, and the punishment for that was severe. Joseph sat down, a wash of emotions, hurt, shame, embarrassment. But in all these emotions, he didn't want to see Mary hurt, because he was a righteous man. So what does he do? Does he just disappear? Does she? Pace, pace, pace. Joseph, exhausted by his own worries, finally falls asleep, and an angel of the Lord visits him in a dream and explains the ins and outs of this child, this holy child that will soon come into the world. The angel explains that the child is born of the Holy Spirit and reminds Joseph of the prophecy of Isaiah, which reads, "Look, The virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall name him Emmanuel. And that Joseph should not leave Mary, but continue as planned, taking Mary as his wife. I guess dreams sent by angels are really powerful because Joseph awoke and did exactly what the angel of the Lord told him to do. He took Mary as his wife, and they raised the baby, a baby born in a stable named Jesus. Joseph, like Mary, simply obeyed God. They raised him as a family, and Joseph became Jesus' earthly father. Unfortunately, we don't know much more about Joseph. We know he was a carpenter, and we know he searched for Jesus when he ran off and was found teaching in the synagogue when he was about 12 years old. And we know that Mary was a widow at the time of Jesus' death on the cross. We know that because Jesus asked the disciple John to take care of his mother, and he wouldn't have needed to do so if Joseph were still alive. We know one more thing. We know that Joseph's lineage leads him back to David. That is of the utmost importance in claiming Jesus' heritage. So Joseph was chosen for a reason. And we know when Jesus ran off, he searched for his son, as any father would do. Jesus was a loved child by both his parents. Joseph serves as a quiet witness for those who rarely get credit. The step-parents that love the children that aren't their own biological children. He serves as a witness for the grandparents who raise their grandchildren, the adoptive parents who waited and wanted a baby and loved their adoptive children without any need of a family tree. He serves as a witness for the neighbors who have served as second parents to the children in their neighborhoods. The godparents, the aunts and uncles who raise up children through love like a parent. Joseph is the model example. All these people don't get much credit. Joseph obeys God and raises and cares for Jesus as his own. He protects his family by exiling them to Egypt when King Herod wishes them harm. And he continues to be a righteous man. And Joseph gets very little credit in the scriptures for doing such things. Those who have been loving to a child that isn't your biological son or daughter, you are in good company. And just in case no one has ever said it to you, thank you. Thank you for raising up children with love. The story of Joseph is rarely told, but he, of course, is a part of the Holy Family. He is a part of the story of Jesus, of a baby king, born in a manger. He is a part of the story of a child that would die far too young, who would save the world from their sins. He is a part of the story of the resurrection that brings hope of eternal life to all. Sometimes a baby coming into the world brings joy, and sometimes it brings stress. And sometimes it brings every emotion in between. I know that this world needs a lot of love poured into it. And I know the children of this world need a lot of love poured into them. Can you be Joseph to someone? Can you be Joseph to a child or to a neighbor or to a friend? Is there someone out there that needs to feel cared for or needs more kindness poured into them? Take the story of Joseph today to heart and think about whose story you can be a part of, who needs some help, who needs a dose of kindness, who needs a dose of love. Joseph's story is a part of our story. It is a part of the greatest story ever told. He doesn't get the limelight. He fades off into the distance, but he sure made a difference in changing the world. In Jesus' holy name.